So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Population Council New York for providing access to data, and also the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development for funding the research that is being reported. Violence against children and adolescents is a global public health issue, and Malawi is not exceptional. Globally, over 200 million adolescents experience violence every year. But in this study, we are particularly concerned with violence against girls, just because girls experience the most devastating forms of violence, and also the consequences are more detrimental among girls. So in Malawi, our recent surveys showed that among girls between 13 to 17 years, 56% of them experience violence in general, and nearly 49% of them experience sexual violence before they are 13 years old, and 29% experience violence on the roads and also in their homes, and between 30 to 55% of them experience violence in schools. But literature shows that adolescent girls who experience violence grow up in fear, uncertainty, and also insecurity, and many of them engage in healthy coping and survival mechanisms that predispose them to HIV. And yet knowledge of the association between violence and the development of sexual behavior among young adolescent girls in the rural parts of Malawi is unclear. In this study, we investigated if home and school-based violence would correlate with, and also if it would predict the development of sexual behavior among young adolescent girls in the rural southern region of Malawi. So we conducted a secondary data analysis of the Malawi schooling and adolescent study, and this was a longitudinal study. It included both boys and girls between 14 and 17 years. But in this study, we used the correlational design and we analyzed only baseline data, and we included girls who are 14 years old and those who were in grades 4 to 8. We used manual test and cross-cohort test and logistical regression to determine the associations. Home-based violence was assessed by asking the girls if they were ever punched, whipped, or slapped in their homes, and the age they first experienced this type of violence. And school violence was assessed by asking the girls if they were ever teased or upset, or if they experienced sexual comments, if they were ever pinched or slapped, and if they were ever touched or pinched on the breasts, the genitalia, and also on the buttocks. And they were asked where these types of violence took place, and also the frequency of the violence. Sexual behavior in this study was defined as sexual initiation, engagement of multiple sexual partners, and also use of protection. Our results showed that 33% of the girls experienced violence in the home, and also 20% experienced violence in the school, and 15% of the girls experienced violence for the first time when they were between 6 to 12 years old. More importantly, we found that sexual initiation was common among these girls. Near 85% of the girls reported that they had at least one man with whom they had sex with, but yet use of protection among these girls was also little. When we assessed the associations, we found that home-based violence predicted engagement of multiple sexual partners in such a way that the girls who experienced the violence and those who experienced violence for the first time when they were older had the greater odds of engaging multiple sexual partners. With the school violence, we found that school-based violence was mainly associated with sexual initiation, such that the girls who never experienced violence were the ones who were less likely to engage in sexual activities. However, the situation was different with those who were punched, slapped, and whipped by the teachers, because there are no significant differences between those who experienced the violence and those who did not experience the violence. But with those who were touched on the breast or on the private areas, the situation was the same. Most of them, they were likely to initiate sexual activities. We also found that school-based violence predicted sexual initiation, and we found that those who were teased or upset on their way to school and those who were touched on the private areas, they were the ones who had the greater odds of sexual initiation. Yet those who were punished by the teachers and those who experienced sexual comments on their way to school, they had less likelihood of initiating sexual activities. And with use of protection, we found that those who were teased on their way to school had less likelihood of using protection, while those who were punished by the schoolmates had greater likelihood of using protection. So from this study, we find that the girls in the rural parts of Malawi are at increased risk of contracting HIV due to lack of protection in institutions that needed to protect them. Of course, we are quite aware that a combination of factors in adolescent girls' environment are likely to contribute to the development of risky sexual behavior. But from these findings, we cannot deny the fact that home-based and school-based violence has a potential to influence the development of risky sexual behaviors among young adolescent girls. And there is need, of course, for further research to understand violence as a determinant of sexual behavior among young adolescent girls and to identify strategies to end home and school-based violence. It is also very important that policymakers and government partners should ensure that home and school institutions are safer places for young adolescent girls. Of course, the study had some limitations. We used already existing data and it was cross-sectional, and we focused only on the girls who were 14 years old. But the results were very informative and they provided a good foundation for further investigations. Thank you very much for your attention.